Welcome back to our Line Opinion panel. New Mexico sits at a crossroads this week as the federal government decides the fate of one toxic waste site and considers plans for another. The feds need state approval to keep the waste isolation pilot plant known as WIPP up and running for the next 10 years. According to Source New Mexico, the site's current permit calls for the plant to close next year, and a federal report claims WIPP could run out of disposal space by 2025. It's right around the corner. This is all happening as federal officials consider licensing another nuclear waste site in southeast New Mexico. Now, if that is approved, Holtec International will open a multi-million-dollar dumping ground that could hold nearly 9,000 metric tons of spent nuclear waste. Now, when WIPP began operating here in New Mexico, we opened the doors for this state to be where the rest of the country stores waste they don't want. Senator, am I right on that? And are we about to take a corner to be just known as the dumping ground for the rest of the country? Hate to start off with such a stark question, but that's a lot of folks are very afraid of that right now.
Oh, well, I think the civic leaders from southeast New Mexico literally solicited the Holtec plant to come to that area, using the argument that we're willing to do this. We're trained. We know the ropes. It's really unfortunate, I think, for the rest of the state because of the transportation issue. This stuff has to be transported to this remote location through New Mexico. Of course, there's a big difference between the two facilities. One is public and one is private. One is, Holtec is to house very, very dangerous high-level waste. And the other, WIPP, more long-lasting transuranic waste that is maybe not quite so dangerous immediately, but it's going to last 250,000 years.
That's right. If those barrels don't give way first underground, and we've covered that at this table, certainly. Andy, interestingly, standing in the way of the proposed Holtec site, Senator just mentioned, is a new bill the governor signed last month, as you know. It blocks the feds from creating a high-level waste site without state approval, but that legislation doesn't go into effect until June 15th, and the NRC says it could make its decision in May. A bit of a dilemma here. How much teeth does that actually have, what was passed in Santa Fe to stop this?
Well, I mean, again, I think timing-wise it would have a lot more teeth if it was, but that's also just sort of the nature of the legislature. You know, that's just, there's a timeline of things that happen. I guess, and maybe the senator could speak on this better, but I would imagine that there's some sort of provision of, okay, now the law's in effect. I don't know, that creates a whole headache and mess of untangling there, I think.
They're trying to get in front of it. You know, the governor is trying to get in front of this and others. And is it futile with this bill that was passed out of the legislature?
No, I think it's really a good thing that this bill passed out of the legislature. The Attorney General has also weighed in with the governor. The governor signed it right away, the next day, as a signal that this is really important before the NRC inevitably, in my view, issues its permit. The EPA one, though, is pending, I think, a little bit longer term. And this is going to create a lot of problems for Holtec. And I don't think, particularly because it's a private facility rather than a DOE facility.
Well, there's oversight issues. There's all kinds of issues with private versus a federal installment.
Well, the state in some ways has more of a handle on it because they have to issue building permits. They have to do transportation permits. There's a whole bunch of stuff. If you want to build anything in New Mexico, you got to jump through a lot of hoops, not just environmental ones.
Good points there. Sean Griswold, interestingly, there's a fundamental question here. Senator mentioned the folks down in this part of the Eddy and Lee County are actively seeking to bring folks in. Are these elected officials choosing economic growth over health and safety of their folks down there?
You know, it appears that economic growth is impactful, and it's part of even Holtec's plan. They're saying that they're going to be offering more than 250 jobs, $75,000 job.
It's a lot of money.
At the
Southeast
time,
New
a
Mexico.
lot of money in Southeast. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of oil and gas money that pay a little bit on that at the beginning, and that's kind of what we were discussing, earlier off the side of the show with the senator was, when this started in 1999 or a little bit years before that, as they were soliciting these industries, oil and gas was not where it was today, and so now that you have another type of industry that's active that also has to go into the ground, into the earth, potentially, hopefully not over any type of waste site, or could disturb those waste sites. I think that there's a lot more to consider when it comes to that. But these are also massive industries. I mean, you mentioned, it being a nation dumping ground. We're also talking international waste that could get to New Mexico if this group were to expand.
That's right.
I think one of the bigger elements too that we're going to consider, with the timing of the different applications being filed, even if the feds approve Holtec's plan, Holtec would still also have to apply for state permits with the Department of Energy as well as the Department of Transportation. And under the new law, the state does have some very strict guidelines. Number one, not to solicit new permitting grants for nuclear storage waste. So that goes direct conflict with the state law. But then where it's going to become a big thing is going to become the battle in courts where it's preemptive arguments are going to be made. The concept where state laws are trump county laws and federal laws trump state laws. So we could end up, this Holtec negotiation could be going down for years before anything is ever actually built or dug into the ground.
That's a fair point.
And the hope is that in that time period, there will be another permanent waste facility designated by the federal government. That's the problem here, is that this is supposed to be an interim facility, and yet interim facilities have a way of becoming permanent, don't they?
Thank you.
That's what's happening with
program.
That's right. That's right. Interesting. I'm going to change up just a little bit here, guys, and go to another environmental issue that's out there. Heading north to Sandoval County, far different environmental concern up there, and that is water. The governor declared a state of emergency in Sandoval County last week because the Jemez River is running, causing flooding in the Jemez River Valley, Andy. Ranches, neighborhoods, an anomaly, climate change. What's going on here? A lot of the whiplash between drought and flooding we're suffering here in New Mexico. It's a difficulty.
It's hard not to see this as an effective or impact of climate change, right? I mean, when you see that the snowpack is melting faster than we would want it to, and everything's rushing down the river, and then when things freeze up again, it sort of slows down. And there were some really great quotes in a lot of the stories that have come out, or not quotes, but that sort of that we're at nature's mercy. We can't really control what happens. I mean, I guess we have impacts on it, but it's we're just sort of at its will.
That's right. Senator, you have local knowledge of the Jemez River Valley, that's for sure, personally. And what's the flooding been like? Have you been up to see it? Or
yes, we have a weekend place up in Jemez Springs, which was the epicenter of this. And I got to tell you, I was delighted. It was wonderful to see this surge, this spring runoff, and see the Bosque flooded and the banks of the Jemez River beginning to meander rather than having a straight channel. This was what it used to be like. Now, and the danger is over. I went around and looked at the beginning of last week, which was when it was at its height. I think maybe 7 or 8 feet.
Oh, wow.
9 feet is flooding. Jemez Springs had that in 1942, was the last time. The river is now at about 6 feet. And that's really not a problem, except for one thing, and this is, I think, characteristic of a lot of rural communities, and that is they have their small sewage treatment plant located right next to the river.
Oh boy.
And so they have that because, a lot of people like to live next to the river.
That's right.
when they're in these rural communities. And if they have septic tanks, then that pollutes the river. So therefore, the municipalities, when they have the money to do it, build these small sewage treatment plants. And in this case, the sewage treatment plant was flooded.
Wow.
And the pumps failed. And sewage did get into the river. Not enough to really pollute the river. The E. coli count was 1, and the contamination is 4. And they have been pumping out and sort of rescuing the sewage treatment plant. There was also a pipe that failed. And there's been excellent coordination between the Pueblo, which is downstream of Jemez Springs, and they are dumping some of this waste into a lagoon at Jemez Pueblo.
Okay.
But it's being managed effectively,
Right.
I think, and the weather is getting a little chillier. Last week there was a big warm spell,
That's
and
right.
that set a big surge of river water down there. So
It's the talk of the West, California to here, and Sean, everyone's talking about this, a blessing in disguise, and now we have to manage this. So does the area need more dams, flood-based infrastructure? Have we learned from that flooding we had back in the old Cerro Grande fire, that went through and wiped out Dixon Apple Farm, and they were placing barriers? Do we need to do better at that? Just count on flooding at this point?
I think that what the senator had to say about Jemez Pueblo, downstream having capacity to manage a lot of the flooding is because of the infrastructure that the Pueblo now has. The Pueblo has enterprises like a Department of Transportation that they operate with road projects. They have a housing development. They have an early childhood center. There's even natural resources departments that are built to operate and manage the flooding and irrigation that, there are still farmers who are using this water within the Pueblo who have massive spaces of land. That's where you get that good, Jemez Pueblo chili. And so I think that seeing the capacity for the Pueblos to have that, millions of dollars in infrastructure to help sustain the sort of state, county, and then even local townships collaborative, that's how you strengthen it. Because for the longest time, there was always state, county, and then the Pueblo, which was kind of always trying to keep up, but didn't have, the substantial resources that it does now. But yeah, that's, I think, been beneficial to this overall effort. So it doesn't affect people even further down the stream, like by San Isidro, which is further down. And also even the road conditions, so people can still access their homes.
Flooding's an issue. It's so interesting to go from dead, dry, dust blowing around to more water than we can manage. California, Lake Mead's coming back up. I'm not quite sure where Elephant Butte is, if anybody's heard, if we're starting to rise our water levels down there from the runoff. All we can do is hope at this point. Senator, have you heard? Look, you might have.
I think the reservoirs in northern New Mexico are filling up. But the amount that's in Elephant Butte is just dependent upon the releases from those reservoirs.
It's going to take a long time for Elephant Butte downstream, that's for sure. Thanks again to our line panel, as always, for this week. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics we covered on our social media pages, and check out an extra conversation I have with this group about new schedules coming to Albuquerque Public Schools. That's on the New Mexico in Focus YouTube page.